Hello, everyone. I wanted to talk today about the gene keys a little bit more because I keep getting a lot of questions, and I feel that for many of you, the shadow and the gift and the city that we often talk about in the gene keys is actually not clear. Okay, how does this work for me? And also, oftentimes, I think we feel like, okay, I'm just stuck in the shadow, and we tend to resist it, or we think that's a bad thing. And I had some more insights myself as I have been diving deeper into the gene keys for many years now. And I actually just started diving into the Pearl Sequence online retreat. And just yesterday, I had some really amazing epiphanies that I think if I share this with you is going to help you a lot to actually get much more out of the gene keys. So for that, I'm going to actually share my screen. So here we go. The purpose is really to help you understand how do we move from the shadow to the gift frequency. So if you look at your Gene Keys profile, it's going to look similar probably to this. This is my Gene Keys profile. That is actually the true sidereal version. If you have been following me along, I have been feeling a very strong pull towards true sidereal astrology, and that impacts your Gene Keys profile. I have done some other videos about that here on my YouTube channel. So if you want to go back to that, you're more than welcome. But you can also, your regular Gene Keys profile is going to be based on tropical astrology. That's as perfect as this one. So whichever one I always say resonates with you. So as you can see, there's a lot of numbers and colors and circles and a lot of also names. So this is my life's work 38.5. And then you see some names here: honor, perseverance, struggle, line 5, fixer. And then, okay, what is all of this? So basically, the first three words, the lowest one from those three, I'm not going to talk about the line right now. That is what we call the shadow. And as you can see down here, that is typically a challenge that we have. And then the gift, in this case called perseverance, is your creativity, your gift in some way, right? Like the gift. And it's more a positive thing, obviously, what we want. And then the city is called here my essence. And the city is like the highest level of consciousness. And I think many people get more overwhelmed with that, and they try to figure out what this all means. And one of the things with the gene keys is that this is a very, very slow process, going to take a lot of patience. And there are some books that have all the information about the gene keys. I'm going to put some of that in the show notes so you can actually check them out. Maybe you have them already. There's also some amazing audios that are available from the Gene Keys website. And I'm actually going to drop down here below this video. I have this reference guide for the 64 archetypal energies where I share my favorite books, also for the human design gates, because the gene key, so that the 38th gene key is in essence the same as gate 38 in human design. So you may want to look at all of these different resources to help you really understand the essence of that. But then again, it's like, okay, now we have the shadow, the gift, and the city, and how does this all work? Because in the book, or if you listen to the audios from Richard Rudd that he recorded, he talks about the characteristics of the shadow. And the shadow always has a more introverted expression. A shadow is always a fear, right? Where we more kind of not really share the shadow so much, but we internalize it a lot. But it's there, it's the fear. We keep having it in our thoughts probably a lot. And there's also a more extroverted way of expressing the shadow, and that is a more aggressive way where we really project it out into the world more. So oftentimes when people have a lot of anger, that's very often that shadow that is coming out. And again, for all the 64 gene keys, you can read all of this. What I want to explain to you today that I think is going to be really helpful, so I'm going to actually hop over to the next slide. I just picked one here as an example. So the radiance sphere in my case is the 57.1, the 57th gene key in the line 1. So this is called unease as the shadow, intuition as the gift, and clarity as the city. So I want to now explain with this example how you can work with your particular gene keys. So just like we have polarities in life, because the shadow and the gift, I'm not even going to talk about the Siddhi right now. We'll do that in a little bit. I want you to think about it's just like a coin. It's a polarity in some way, right? Where we have like, okay, it cannot coexist without the other one, you know? And we cannot have the gift without the shadow. And in the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd beautifully explains it that the gift is in the shadow. So if we are not having the courage to actually look at the shadow, which is our wounded part, is the part that has a lot of fears, which we all humans have. That's the good news. You're not alone at all. And when we can receive this part with gentleness and compassion and accept that part of us, when we're no longer resisting the shadow, that's when we get more into the gift frequency. But then again, I think people are like having this idea, and this came up for myself as well. Okay, I'm either going to be in the shadow or in the gift. So what I have realized, so you also want to think about, as an analogy, we have dark and light. There's also polarity we have in life. We have lots and lots of, we have male and female. We have yin and yang. We have hot and cold. We have so many things. So I want you to think about the shadow and the gift, just like right now I'm using dark and light as an example, or you can also think about cold and hot. And it's like a thermometer, right? There is a scale. And if you think about dark and light, well, we have pitch black, it's super dark. But then as the night progresses and eventually the sun is going to come up, it's slowly getting lighter, but it's still dark, right? So it's process. It's like blending. At some points, we have a 50-50 of dark and light, and then at some point the light takes over and we're going to be more in the light. And then naturally, as the day and the night goes on, we go back to the dark and then we go back to the light, right? So with the Gene Keys, it's also very important that it's not this black or white kind of way with the shadow and the gift that you're either going to be in the shadow 100% or you're going to be in the gift 100%. From my experience, is that when we're really in the shadow, we're not even aware of it. And that's where a lot of people in this world are, right? They're operating in the shadow frequency. In the shadow frequency, we'll always find our basic natural human fears. So here it's called for the 57th Gene Key unease. And this is a place where I don't trust myself. I'm not listening to my intuition. And then things really go not in certain ways. And there's also probably some agitation that's showing up in my life. And I'm in the shadow, right? And I'm really deeply in it. The Gene Keys and human design and all these beautiful tools, they're here to awaken us, right? They're here to like, okay, guys, there's something better in this world. You can move out of this victim consciousness. You can actually be the creator of your beautiful, amazing life. And in a way, the Gene Keys are here to make us aware of these shadows so that we can actually break out of them. Because anytime you work with inner child healing, for example, emotions, unhealthy patterns, like let's say you start to work with a coach to start running, and or you start to eat with a health coach to eat better, or a nutritionist or something like that, right? And we want to change our habits in some way. And in order to change your habits, you have to be aware first what your habit that is not so helpful for you even is, right? If we don't even know, or with running, if you don't even know where you're at, what your current pace is, how out of shape you are, all these things, we have to have kind of a baseline, right? We have to be aware of it. And then from this point, we can start to shift it. So it's kind of the same with a shadow, that we need to become aware of it. I'm like, oh, no, that's what's going on. It has been running my life, all this conditioned view of the world. And it's not a bad thing that you actually experience a shadow. The good thing is actually that you become aware of it. That's the first step of awakening to begin with. And then what starts to happen with the gift frequency is that you start to actually, in the gift frequency already, you start to be aware, you become very mindful of the shadow itself, and you start to work with the shadow. And as you go along, it becomes easier and easier, because in the very beginning, when you learn about your shadow and you're really aware of it, right? We do feel a little bit like a victim, and we wonder, like, how can I break free from it? And we most likely are more naturally in a state of resistance. But in the gift frequency, so here, this is intuition. So it's all about trusting myself, right? And it's not like, oh, I'm in the gift and I trust my intuition today and I will never ever experience the shadow again. What really happens is that through me not listening to my intuition and noticing how this brings unease, I become more and more aware of how this is actually not serving me, and then how things go. And I start to become more compassionate with myself. And then as you are in the gift frequency, you become so mindful of actually when this shows up, when you have the intuition and your fears are trying to talk you out of it, and whatever else is coming up that wants you to go back into your shadow. And then it's almost like you become the observer of yourself, of the conditioned part of you, of the shadow part, again, that we all have. And then we have that choice, we have that willpower to decide, okay, do I go back to just being with a shadow and not listening to my intuition? Or do I have now the courage to actually be bold and brave and have the courage to actually trust my intuition? And so over time, we start to build new habits, and your nervous system starts to realize that, ooh, it's actually safe. Life is actually so much better when I trust my intuition, right? It's just like when we change our habits. In the beginning, it's hard. We want to give up very easily, because it's also for our nervous system. The shadow is most likely what is safe, because most of us have been living more in the shadow frequency. I'm not saying this is the case for all of us, but if that's the case for you, then be really, really gentle with yourself, because also thank your shadow part in a way that it actually wants to feel safe. And as things start to get better and lighter, and you hang out, so to say, more on the spectrum here, like you keep moving more towards the gift, the light more, what actually happens in the beginning, the shadow wants to keep pulling you back. It's almost like a thermometer that wants to recalibrate to the temperature that you feel comfortable in. So if that's like 72 degrees for you in Fahrenheit talking right now, like in your home, right? It's like once it gets hot, it gets really good. Oh no, let me go back here, right? And the other way as well. So think about that. If we are not consciously aware and put in a little bit of effort to change it, on autopilot, we will always calibrate back to our main frequency, the thing that we have been conditioned to most of our life, right? And that's what the shadow frequency will be. But then again, as you are aware, and this is why it's a process, it takes time, guys. It's not something like, oh, I read it and I got it and that's it. It does require a lot of patience. There's a reason why the whole basis of the Gene Keys is called the art of contemplation. And it's a slow, beautiful, contemplative practice. And if you're not willing to put time into this and patience, most likely the Gene Keys are not going to do that much for yourself. Just to share from my own experience. But I can tell you, when you do that, because patience and slowing down also brings up a lot of uncomfortable emotions, in the sense that we feel like we need to figure this out now, and I have to move faster, and I need to be doing all these things already, right? When you really have courage to go into that and really work with the shadow, receive the shadow, and keep massaging your new habits into your subconscious, so that you slowly over time start to learn in your subconscious that it's actually safe to be in the gift, to be, in this case, with the frequency of intuition and trusting yourself, right? And it's also much more sustainable actually when you do it at a slower pace, because just like, let's think about dieting. When people do this super binge diet, super fast, super quick, yeah, they may fit into the dress for a couple of days, but it feels so unsafe to the nervous system because it went so fast and quick, and your body couldn't really adjust to that, and it has not become a sustainable habit. But those people that take their time, they go at a slower pace. Also think about when people train for a marathon, those who go slow but consistent over time, those are the ones that really ace it. It's the same with nutrition, right? Those that, change their eating habits slowly but consistently over time, they'll most likely see the better results. And then it becomes a new way of being, and you don't even have to think about it anymore. And you just are with that new behavior on a more daily basis. Now, also with that, you start to train, you start to eat better. There will be days where the little shadow wants to show up and try to pull you back. But then again, that's where you come in. You are the creator of your life. You get to choose what you decide. And very often as well, we actually move back into the shadow frequency because there's also an element of us that doesn't wants to please other people, one. And what's behind it oftentimes is that when you start to feel much better, you are more in the gift frequency, right? Your life is going better and everything. And think about when you were more in the shadow frequency and you saw other people where their life is just going really well. And I mean, I think it's just very normal that we may feel a little bit jealous, or we feel like we're not good enough, or what have they figured out and we don't have, right? And we don't want people to feel like that about ourselves, right? So when life starts to get better and you get to be more in the gift, this may happen obviously very unconsciously, not like intentionally in any way or form. I just want you to be aware of it, that you may be unconsciously sabotaging yourself to be more in the shadow because you don't want to make other people feel bad because they are not as much in the gift frequency as you are through the work you have been doing, right? And so over time, you slowly evolve more into the higher spectrum of the gift frequency. But the gift it's a broad spectrum. It's not like, oh, I'm in the gift or I'm in the shadow. They actually only through the shadow and working with the shadow and being aware of it and the mindfulness, and it's about how you respond when the shadow shows up. If you, let's say your shadow shows up and you respond with not trusting yourself, in this case with a 57, you keep staying more in the shadow, right? But then in the gift frequency, then okay, we are aware of the shadow shows up. Your fear of the unknown, for example, that's really what the 57, the big fear is, the fear of the unknown, what's going to happen when we never know that, right? That holds us back from taking action, trusting ourselves, And I could use this example of this video I'm creating right now. I had this intuitive thing come through yesterday and then this morning, and I was like, okay, now's the time to actually record this. And my mind is like, okay, but nobody's going to listen to it. What if they're not going to get it? Or I should do some other things, and then we don't do it. So it's about responding in an empowered way. That is already the gift frequency. And the entire Gene Keys actually invite us into that. How are you responding to life? Are you responding from the victim mentality where life is happening to you and you're a victim to everything that's occurring? Or are you responding in an empowered way where everything that life gives you is a learning lesson, right? Because with the intuition as well, like from not trusting myself and things not going well and me kind of getting a kick in the butt sometimes, which I have definitely experienced in my life when I did not listen to my intuition. Wow, that's a big learning lesson. I'm not going to forget that. So I'm actually very thankful for that. And that's really what the entire Gene Keys are about. Is like, how are you responding? And I'm intentionally repeating myself here because it's so important. You keep moving up on this scale or spectrum of the gift frequency. And then the Siddhi, so the Siddhi is something that's like the third level of consciousness in some way. And those of you that are also into human design a lot, so if you have the human design gate, we always only have like a lower and a higher expression, but in the Gene Keys, we also have that, the Siddhi, right? And the Siddhi is the highest level of consciousness. That's our true essence, where we feel totally at peace and this unity where we connect with everyone. We know we're all equal. There's no hierarchy whatsoever. And that is a state I think very few of us will get to in this lifetime, but it is totally possible. It's like a Buddha kind of consciousness, right? And this is not something you want to chase after in any way or form. This is something that may magically happen out of you working with your shadow and being in the gift frequency more and keep responding in a more empowered and positive way. And the way I understand is like the Siddhi is something you may get glimpses of here and there. And at some point when you really move into the Siddhi, it's almost like a quantum leap. And then you're there and you're not going to go back into even the gift frequency because it's such an enlightened state. There's something in your cell and your DNA that really, really shifts and opens up. But again, we're not here to pursue or chase the quantum leap. Like, allow it to happen. If it happens, it happens. But for that to happen, we have to be thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of us have to be living more in the gift frequency. And again, that's a process. And without the shadow, there is no gift frequency, if that makes sense. So I hope this helps you to love your shadows a little bit more, because it's literally like the fertile soil that you put the seed in, and in the beginning it's dark, you don't see anything. We can reject it and say, I'm not going to water that. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to try to cut off the flower somewhere because I want to have the flower. That's a gift. And then, oh, the flower, doesn't last long because it's not connected to its actual roots and the source where it grew out of. And then you have the other person that was patient and they actually decided, even though there's just dark soil right now and I cannot even see the seed, it feels kind of uncomfortable. I'm going to keep flowering it, a little bit of water every single day. So over time, there's a little sprout coming up, a little green. And that's also often when things start to be good, right? And we get scared, fear of success. And then we stop watering the plant. And then it dies off again. And we have to repeat the whole process over and over again. But if you keep up the momentum, if you keep responding in a positive light and in a powered way, which means here in this case to keep watering that little sprout that come out, even though some other people already have a big sunflower, you keep being appreciative, being grateful, you keep being with that, even though there's still a lot of soil and the shadow is still all around it, but you keep watering it. And so over time, you also have this beautiful flower that is going to bloom, right? So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I, again, hope this really helps you a little bit and makes your work with the Gene Keys more impactful, more powerful. Obviously, I would love to hear what's coming up for you in response to what I'm sharing here today. And if you want to join me more for Gene Keys contemplations, we also do a lot of that in my membership, the Conscious Money Collective. So if you feel free, you can check that out. And yeah, I just wish you all the best on your journey to find your true gifts and gems that are all hidden inside of you. And again, your access point are your shadows. So be gentle and loving with yourself. And I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.